Welcome back to the shop, everybody. So I have taken a few days and figured out the distances and all that to make the roof at least semi-even, and I think I've got that figured out. But we're not working on that today because I am actually going to try to get the bottom put into this cabinet, as well as try and get the electrical panel behind it, which actually goes into the galley. So as you see here, we've got the WFCO power everything. This is a converter, it's a distributor, it does everything. So I got to put that into the back of the trailer. Here it's the 8700 series, and it's basically the one that most people are putting into their small trailers like this. It's kind of the same thing that they have in a larger RV, just for smaller trailers, which is perfect because that's what this is. So let me show you where this goes. So I'm gonna have to find the center of the galley wall here, but it's gonna go right up top here. It's gonna be kind of ugly, but I think I can figure out a way to cover it up. And so I need a hole right there for the back of this. But to do so, I'm going to need a template, which I actually brought some cardboard with me today so that I can make a template, get it cut out, and figure out exactly if that's really where I want it or not. And as you guys can see here, this is not that small. It's about 3 hand widths wide. It is on the smaller side-ish comparing to some other ones, but I think I'll need to figure out a way to maybe cover it up without restricting the airflow that this needs. Maybe some offsets with some mirror or something, but that will come with the decorating of the trailer. But I'm gonna go ahead and cut a template out of this here box and figure out exactly where this thing needs to sit. Alright, so after the first test fit, I did end up having to cut out a little bit more. It's not going to be perfectly centered now, but whatever, that's not that big a deal. And now this should slide right perfect. Alright, now that it's sitting in here, I need to take this whole face front off so that I can get to the mounting screws. And I think the way I do that is I just take these off right here. There's 4 screws. And now, as you can see, I can get to the screw holes to actually mount this to the galley wall. Now, to keep all this clean, or at least semi-clean while I'm building, I'm going to go ahead and put this back on. Alright, now on to the next project. So unfortunately I don't have money to go out and buy a 1/2-inch piece of plywood for the bottom of the shelf. But as you can see here, I did get a piece all the way across. And how I did that was I ended up taking a 3/4 piece of plywood instead of the half that I was going to use, and I basically cut them down to widths, and Craig screwed on a piece that would extend the rest of the way across the bottom of the cabinet. So that gives me my shelf. But in doing so, I ended up running into a little bit of an issue. So I knew that this back wall wasn't straight. I did not realize that it wasn't almost a 1/2 inch straight. So that's an issue. But I think I may have it figured out. Unfortunately, it's just going to be a two-man job. Let me show you. All right, so here we are at the back. I had to take out the electric panel temporarily. And what I have done is I have put down a piece of wood into the floor, which is solid, remember, and cut a piece 22.5, just shy of 22.5 actually, and put it right there. As you can see, I actually put it up and down a couple of times to get the right straightness at the bottom of the galley wall. So the bottom of the galley wall is as straight as it's gonna get. Unfortunately, it's only straight to like right here, and then it starts to bow out again, which gives us the gap where the shelf is for the cabinet. But as you see here, I have another piece of wood. But hey, look, that's short, right? Well, that's because this piece goes down into there. This piece goes like that. And then you simply push and use the lever, and it straightens out the center of the wall. However, I'm unable to push on this side of the wall and screw in all of the screws that I need to. But if you can see, that's just me using my upper body weight to push the wall. And when I don't have the phone on, I can get it all the way up against the cabinet. So I am hoping that all of these Craig screws will end up holding this plywood in place for the galley wall, and I think that it should do a fairly good job with that. But I have to have constant pressure on the other side of this wall to be able to get them all in there, because if I try to just put one in, it just pulls the plywood and then it rips it apart. Alright, so here we are a couple days later, and today's supposed to be a scorcher in the 90s. But guys, I have not been able to get my buddy over here to help me with that little issue. However, I'm going to do something that might be a little dangerous, but I'm going to give it a shot. So back here, as I showed you guys, I've got that pole. I screwed in this piece of wood, so that is right about where the shelf is on the inside of the trailer. I have also put a little block up here, and that is because, as you see, I've got a little strap there. Well, let's see what that strap goes to. So that strap goes to this bar here, which then goes up and wraps around. What I'm hoping will happen is that when I crank that down, hopefully it will move that piece of wood on the other side and bring that whole wall into where it's supposed to be. If things go horribly wrong, hey, at least I got a video of it. Okay, so I am legitimately surprised that that actually worked, but now comes the scary part. See, there's a chance that when I release the tension on this, that whole board is still going to want to go back to where it was, which could cause quite a few issues with that plywood pulling apart. So, fingers crossed, here we go. Alright, so it held, so that means we can continue on with the build. Putting it off long enough, guys, it's time for me to take care of that leg that's at an angle there. I'm not going to record any of it because, well, that'd be boring for you guys. Alright, so I kind of fixed it. It's not quite as bad of an angle, but it's still not great. However, I don't think that I can really fix it straight until I remove all of these. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna figure out how long those need to be so that when I take them out, I can have them cut to the right sizes. And the size that I'm talking about is between the inner wall here and the inner wall here. However, it's actually not being put that wide because I'm going to have a strip going all the way down that's going to be a little bit lower than that wall, and that is going to be for electrical wiring and an access panel. So basically I have to figure out from here to where about in the center I want that strip to be on the inside. So what is actually determining the size of that strip that I have on the inside? Well, it's not just a random board. It's actually this. And what this is the light. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. So here is the LED light that I have chosen. Now it has a 2.5 inch hole on the back, and it basically gets drilled through here, and then this pops up into there, and these little springs hold it in place like so. Now the thing is, these are silver, so I might end up changing these out for some white ones later on down the road, but honestly I just needed these to be able to figure out how big of a centerpiece I want. And honestly, I'm kind of thinking that this wide, however wide this is literally just a piece of scrap that I found, might actually be about right. Now I could always cut it a little bit thinner and have a little bit thinner one, but I kind of like the distance on each side of that. So let's see how wide it is. 5 3/8. Well, I don't like dealing with 3/8. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut that down that 1/8 and to see how it looks at that time. Alright, so here we go. Now that I have this, and mind you, this whole thing would be painted black or will be black. I'm thinking I might possibly go with a type of plastic that is already black for this centerpiece, being as how it has to bend around things. But that leaves about 1.5 inches on each side of this, and I kind of like that look. Here it is on the back side, so as long as I make sure that those are going the proper direction, I can overhang this by about 1.5 inches on each side. So to explain this a little bit better, so pretend like we're inside looking up at the roof. So as you can see, so basically this one will go to that wall, this one will go all the way to this wall, but there's a channel here to run wiring. So what I'm trying to figure out is how wide from here to the wall needs to be, because I need some kind of overhang, right, for that. So that's kind of how the inside's going to look, except for these will be white and the center will be a black. So the math has been done on the pieces here. Now this is just a not even test piece because it's not the correct width, but the pieces that go like this up against here and off to the center are each going to be about 2 foot 4 inches and 1/4, and that will leave me with a nice little gap right in the center for that electrical panel and the electrical faceplate that holds all the lights and switches and that kind of thing. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and, instead of me trying to cut those myself, I'm just going to do the easy thing and take it over to the lumberyard, since I got to go there anyway to try to figure out how much it's going to cost me for 20 or 21 joists that will go across the ceiling from the wall to the wall. Alright, so I am now back from the lumberyard, and as you see, I have the plywood for the ceiling cut. I also went ahead and picked up 4 1x8x10s. Now those will have to be cut down to specifically the measurements for between the inner walls there. And once that is done, I can start on the ceiling. But I do got to do one thing first, and that is figure out exactly where I want the fan to go. So that's what we're going to mess around with now. Alright, so with what I have done today with getting those cut, getting the boards, I'm not cutting the boards out today like I thought that I was going to, because I actually need to do a little bit of figuring first. I may end up actually painting those panels before I put them up, because it might be easier, but I do got to think on that a little bit. I also got to take a look at the book and see how he connected the roof to the wall here, as well as figure out what screws I should use to go through the wall here into the spars that will be going across the ceiling. Now before I can go further, I really do got to figure out where that fan is going to go as far as the position on the roof. And I'm going to, of course, talk to the guys over at the DIY Teardrop Campers community Facebook page that I always get a lot of help from them, and they are just really helpful guys. I'm going to ask them about that and a couple of other little things as far as the trailer goes. So I'm going to go and do that, and I will see you all in the next video. Until next time, you all have a good one.